stop giving to everyone who asks. Some people don't want help, they want to drain you. Every time you say yes to the wrong person, you lose energy, focus, and respect. Your kindness is not a license for exploitation. Today, I'm going to show you how to recognize the takers, protect your time and energy, and turn refusal into your greatest strength. Because saying no isn't cruelty, it's power. Not everyone asking for help deserves it, and the moment you realize this, you begin to see the world with sharper eyes. The first step in understanding this truth is learning to differentiate between genuine need and opportunistic demand. Many people approach us with empty smiles and convincing words, making their requests sound reasonable, urgent, or even heartfelt. They appeal to your empathy, your history of generosity, and your desire to see people succeed. But beneath the surface, many of these requests are not about growth, progress, or real change. They are about extraction. They are about taking from you what you have worked for, your time, your energy, your peace, and your sense of self. There are those who have become skilled at identifying the kind-hearted, the reliable, and the compassionate, and they exploit it. They have perfected the art of making you feel obligated, guilty, or even proud for giving, while they keep taking without any intention of reciprocation. You must learn to identify these people, not out of cynicism, but out of necessity, because allowing them access to your life unchecked is a recipe for exhaustion, disappointment, and sometimes devastation. Recognition comes not from assuming the best in everyone, but from observing patterns over time. Genuine need is accompanied by accountability, by gratitude, and by a willingness to meet halfway. Exploitative requests, on the other hand, come wrapped in drama, urgency, and an underlying assumption that your help is a right rather than a gift. They appear in every circle of life: friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, even strangers. They often arrive cloaked in language that tugs at your emotions. "I don't know what I would do without you," they say, and you feel a pull to act, to prove that you are compassionate, capable, and morally upright. But acting in these moments without discernment feeds the very cycle that keeps them coming back for more. The difference between genuine and exploitative requests is subtle, but it is there. Genuine requests respect boundaries, exploitative ones ignore them. Genuine requests acknowledge your limitations, exploitative ones treat your limitations as invisible. Genuine requests carry an understanding that help is a bridge for growth. Exploitative requests treat it as a lever for personal gain at your expense. Your challenge is to train your perception to see these cues clearly, to catch the hidden motives that ride along with the words, the subtleties that hint at manipulation. It is a skill that comes from experience, observation, and a willingness to face the uncomfortable truth that not everyone has pure intentions. Once you recognize this truth, you begin to reclaim the power that comes from discretion. You realize that every act of help you provide has consequences beyond the immediate moment. It can either strengthen your relationships and build mutual respect, or it can create dependency, entitlement, and exploitation. This is why discernment is not only necessary, it is a moral imperative. You have a responsibility to yourself to safeguard your resources, and a responsibility to those around you to act with intention rather than impulse. The world is filled with voices claiming need, but your job is to distinguish the voices that truly matter from the ones that merely demand. It is not easy. There will be moments of guilt, moments where your empathy screams louder than your logic, where saying no feels like betrayal, where the weight of societal expectations presses down on your conscience. Society tells us to always be giving, to always be available, to always be selfless. It praises sacrifice without discernment and paints refusal as a character flaw. But wisdom teaches a different truth. Unlimited giving without boundaries is not virtue. It is vulnerability masquerading as morality. True virtue is measured not by how much you give indiscriminately, but by how wisely and intentionally you give. When you realize that not everyone deserves your help, you are not abandoning humanity. You are choosing to act in alignment with reality, to conserve your energy for those who value it, and to create a life where your generosity has meaning rather than being exploited. There is a freedom in this recognition, a liberation from the constant pull of obligations that do not serve either party. It allows you to prioritize your life, your work, your growth, and your relationships in a way that is authentic and sustainable. Every request you consider becomes a moment of decision, a test of your awareness and discipline. You learn to ask the crucial questions. Why am I helping this person? What will they do with this help? Is this a one-time situation or a pattern of exploitation? Will my action create growth or dependency? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are necessary. They are the guardrails that prevent your generosity from becoming a weapon used against you. When you understand this, you see the subtle patterns. The friend who only calls when in crisis, the coworker who always seeks favors but never contributes, the relative who expects assistance without gratitude. You see that these patterns are not accidents. They are indicators of character, values, and intention. And the truth is, refusing to help the wrong people is an act of protection, not malice. It is a statement that your time, your energy, and your well-being have boundaries that will not be crossed. It is a refusal to participate in a dynamic that benefits only one side. This recognition does not require harshness. It requires clarity, discipline, and courage. You will need to steel yourself against the guilt and the social pressures, and you will need to practice the art of refusal with tact and firmness. Over time, you begin to see that the world responds differently when you do not give indiscriminately. People notice that your help is selective, intentional, and meaningful. Those who were previously exploitative may retreat or attempt to manipulate further, but this is a reflection of their character, not yours. Those who genuinely value your support, your guidance, and your assistance will respect the boundaries you set, and your relationships with them will deepen and strengthen. In the end, recognizing that not everyone asking for help deserves, it is not about building walls, it is about creating space. Space for your own growth, space for meaningful relationships, space for genuine contribution, and space for the peace that comes from knowing your energy is not being squandered on those who do not deserve it. It is a principle that, once internalized, transforms the way you engage with the world. It shifts you from a reactive responder to a deliberate actor. It changes the currency of your generosity from being available to everyone to being invaluable to the right people. And this shift, this awakening, is the foundation of personal power, self-respect, and meaningful living. Every choice to help the right person becomes a reinforcement of your discernment. Every refusal of an exploitative request becomes a lesson in strength. You begin to understand that generosity is not measured by quantity, but by impact. That true help is not about filling an endless void, but about lifting those who are prepared to rise. And that protecting yourself from those who would take advantage of your kindness is not weakness. It is the cornerstone of wisdom, the manifestation of awareness, and the first step in creating a life where your contributions matter rather than being taken for granted. Helping the wrong people drains your energy and diminishes your worth, and yet so many continue to fall into this trap because it feels good in the moment to say yes. The problem is, not all help is equal, and not all people deserve the privilege of your time, your effort, or your resources. Energy is the currency of life. It is what fuels your work, your relationships, and your personal growth. When you give it away indiscriminately, especially to those who do not value it, you create a deficit in your own life that is hard to recover from. People who constantly ask for help without reciprocating, without showing appreciation, or without acting responsibly with what you provide are not partners in life, they are drains on your vitality. They treat your generosity like an ATM, one that never closes, one that never stops dispensing, one that does not acknowledge the human cost of giving. Every time you extend yourself to someone who takes without thought, your energy diminishes. You may feel tired, frustrated, or even resentful, and these feelings are not flaws in your character. They are natural responses to being exploited. Helping the wrong people creates a hidden toll that you do not see immediately. It manifests as emotional exhaustion, mental fatigue, and a subtle erosion of self-worth. Over time, the pattern becomes clear. Your life begins to feel lighter when you are alone or focusing on your priorities, and heavier when you are enmeshed in the needs and demands of those who will never truly support you in return. You may even notice a shift in how others treat you. People begin to expect your help as an entitlement, and the value of your effort is diminished in their eyes. You are no longer seen as a person with boundaries, vision, or agency. You are seen as a perpetual resource to be tapped, a solution to their problems without recognition of your own. This is not a reflection of your generosity. It is a reflection of their character. And yet, in the moment, it is easy to be seduced by the familiar impulse to help. You have been taught that kindness is a virtue, that helping others is inherently noble, and that refusal equates to cruelty. But true kindness is not indiscriminate. True generosity is strategic, intentional, and protective of your own energy. When you learn to identify who deserves your help and who does not, you begin to see the impact of your choices. You start to recognize that your life has finite energy and finite resources, and that giving to the wrong people is not an act of virtue, but an act of self-sabotage. This understanding requires discipline. It requires the ability to pause before responding, to ask critical questions about the intention and capacity of the person seeking help, and to measure the potential impact on your own life. Does helping this person contribute to mutual growth, or does it reinforce a pattern of dependency? Does it honor your boundaries, or does it erode them? Does it uplift both parties, or does it drain one while benefiting the other? These are not easy questions to answer, but they are essential for preserving your energy and maintaining your self-worth. The cost of ignoring these questions is high. It is the slow erosion of confidence, the creeping fatigue of being used, and the quiet despair of realizing that your efforts have been taken for granted. Every time you give to someone unworthy, you are essentially telling them that your limits do not matter, that your energy is infinite, and that your presence is expendable. This is not a message that strengthens relationships or builds respect. It is a message that invites exploitation. To protect yourself, you must develop a clear understanding of your priorities and your boundaries. You must define what kinds of help are acceptable and what kinds are not. This does not mean abandoning empathy or shutting down completely. It means being selective, intentional, and deliberate. It means giving in ways that respect both your needs and theirs. And there is a profound liberation in this realization. When you stop giving to those who do not deserve it, you reclaim your energy, your focus, and your sense of self. You no longer feel depleted after interactions, and you are free to invest your effort in people and causes that truly matter. Your help becomes more meaningful because it is no longer diluted by exploitation. It becomes impactful because it is given with intention rather than obligation. You also begin to notice a change in how others respond to you. People who previously took your energy for granted start to see that your time and effort are not commodities to be exploited. They recognize your boundaries, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. Those who genuinely need and value your support are drawn to you because your energy is now preserved and powerful, not scattered and drained. Learning to protect your energy from the wrong people is a form of self-respect, but it also cultivates wisdom. You develop an acute sense of judgment about human behavior, motivation, and character. You become skilled at identifying those who will appreciate and use your help responsibly and those who will abuse it. This skill is invaluable because energy is not only finite, it is also the foundation of success, fulfillment, and personal growth. Every time you give it away unwisely, you are sacrificing opportunities, clarity, and potential progress in your own life. Consider the ripple effects of giving indiscriminately. The time you spend helping someone who does not deserve it is time taken from your work, your goals, your family, or your personal development. The emotional toll can bleed into other areas of your life, causing frustration, stress, and even conflict in relationships that matter. When you consistently give to those who exploit you, your overall well-being diminishes, your effectiveness decreases, and your sense of accomplishment erodes. Protecting your energy does not make you selfish. It makes you strategic. It allows you to concentrate your efforts where they can create real value, where your assistance can catalyze growth, and where your influence is respected. Energy given to the wrong people is wasted energy. Energy preserved for the right people is investment. And like any investment, it compounds over time, yielding greater returns in both personal satisfaction and meaningful impact. The power of saying no, the discipline of withholding help from those who do not deserve it, is one of the most underrated yet essential skills you can develop. It is not easy to resist the pull of empathy, societal expectation, or guilt, but mastering this skill transforms your life. It restores balance, cultivates respect, and protects the most critical resource you have, your energy. When you truly understand the cost of helping the wrong people, you will approach every request with intentionality, clarity, and purpose. You will measure the worthiness of the request against your own priorities, resources, and boundaries. You will act not out of obligation, but out of conscious choice. And in doing so, you will elevate your life, your relationships, and your ability to contribute meaningfully. Saying no is not selfish, it is self-respect in action. Many people grow up believing that kindness is synonymous with submission, that generosity requires sacrifice, and that refusal is inherently cruel. Society has conditioned us to believe that to say no is to fail morally, emotionally, or socially. We have been told, subtly and overtly, that our value is measured by our willingness to give endlessly, to bend without breaking, and to accommodate the needs of others, even when it comes at a personal cost. But this is a dangerous misconception. The truth is, boundaries are the framework upon which respect, dignity, and self-worth are built. Saying no is not a denial of humanity. It is an affirmation of your own. It signals that your time, energy, and resources are valuable, that they are finite, and that they are not to be treated as commodities by those who would exploit your kindness. Learning to say no is a radical act in a world that profits from your perpetual availability. It is a skill, a discipline, and a moral stance that separates those who are drained by others from those who are empowered by intentional living. When you say no to requests that do not align with your priorities or values, you are making a declaration that you will not be used, manipulated, or taken for granted. You are sending a message, not through harsh words, but through firm action, that your boundaries exist and must be respected. This is not cruelty, this is clarity. It is an act of courage, because saying no often triggers discomfort, resistance, or even anger in others. People are conditioned to expect compliance. They may attempt to guilt, manipulate, or pressure you into agreement, relying on your empathy to override your judgment. But every time you give in to such pressure, you reinforce the pattern of exploitation. You teach them that your limits are negotiable, that your well-being is secondary, and that your refusal can be overcome. Saying no disrupts this cycle. It establishes accountability, not just for the other person, but for yourself. It reinforces the principle that your life is yours to direct, and that the preservation of your energy, focus, and emotional stability is not negotiable. This is self-respect in its most tangible form. The difficulty lies in overcoming the internalized fear of being perceived as selfish, unkind, or unhelpful. In truth, refusing someone who does not deserve your help is an act of integrity. It honors the truth of the situation. It respects both your own boundaries and the reality of the other person's behavior. Helping someone who is unworthy or exploitative is not altruism. It is enabler behavior. It feeds a dynamic that benefits one party at the expense of the other, and in the long run, it undermines both morality and practical wisdom. By contrast, saying no creates space for authentic generosity. It allows your help, when given, to be meaningful, intentional, and transformative. You begin to understand that the power of assistance lies not in the frequency with which it is offered, but in the intention and discernment behind it. Not every request demands a yes. Not every plea is genuine. Not every circumstance is yours to fix. Learning this truth is liberating because it frees you from the obligation to validate or rescue those who do not respect you or your resources. The act of saying no also cultivates emotional resilience. It teaches you to tolerate discomfort, to resist social pressure, and to prioritize long-term well-being over short-term appeasement. You become immune to guilt that is designed to manipulate, and you develop a confidence that is grounded in reality rather than perception. In essence, refusal becomes a tool of empowerment. There is an art to saying no. It is not about anger, resentment, or hostility. It is about clarity, firmness, and tact. A no that is communicated effectively does not burn bridges unnecessarily, but it establishes limits that are recognized and respected. It is precise, deliberate, and consistent. When practiced over time, it reshapes relationships. People begin to understand the weight of your words, the seriousness of your boundaries, and the intentionality of your actions. You shift from being a perpetual responder to being a deliberate actor, from being reactive to being strategic. This shift has profound consequences. It elevates your sense of self-worth, protects your energy, and positions you as someone who commands respect rather than seeking it through endless accommodation. Saying no also has ripple effects beyond your immediate interactions. It influences the environment around you. Others learn that your generosity is not infinite, that your resources are not to be exploited, and that your help is a privilege, not an expectation. This cultivates a culture of accountability, respect, and authenticity. It teaches others to evaluate their requests, to consider your priorities, and to respect the boundaries you set. Furthermore, saying no is an act of foresight. It is the recognition that every yes comes with consequences, that every act of assistance has a cost, and that every resource, time, energy, money, or emotional support must be allocated wisely. By refusing requests that do not serve either party meaningfully, you protect yourself from depletion, frustration, and resentment. You conserve your strength for moments that matter, for relationships that are reciprocal, and for endeavors that align with your vision and values. This practice is not just protective, it is strategic. It enhances your effectiveness, your focus, and your ability to make meaningful contributions. It ensures that your life is not defined by the demands of those who do not respect you, but by the intentional choices you make about where, when, and how to invest your energy. In this sense, saying no is a moral imperative as well as a practical strategy. It balances compassion with discernment, kindness with wisdom, and generosity with accountability. It teaches you that true self-respect is not found in unending compliance, but in deliberate, conscious action. The more you practice saying no, the more natural it becomes. You develop an internal compass that guides your decisions, a clarity that cuts through social pressure, and a confidence that cannot be shaken by external expectations. You begin to understand that your worth is not determined by how many times you give in, but by how wisely you choose to give. And in that understanding lies freedom, the freedom to live according to your own values, to prioritize your own well-being, and to engage with the world on your own terms without being depleted by the endless demands of those who do not respect you. Protecting your time and resources empowers you to grow stronger, and yet so many people underestimate the value of this simple principle. From a young age, we are taught to share, to give, to accommodate, and to prioritize others above ourselves. While these lessons carry merit, they are often taken to extremes, leaving individuals vulnerable to exploitation, manipulation, and emotional exhaustion. The truth is that your time, your energy, your focus, and your resources are finite. They are the foundation upon which your personal growth, success, and fulfillment are built. When you allow others to consume them without discernment, you are undermining your own potential. Empowerment begins with the recognition that you have a choice in where, how, and with whom you invest your resources. Each moment spent serving someone who does not value your contribution is a moment lost in which you could have built your skills, strengthened your relationships with those who matter, or pursued your own goals. Every favor, every hour, every ounce of effort given indiscriminately comes at a cost, sometimes invisible, sometimes profound. Protecting your resources is not selfishness, it is an act of strategic self-preservation. It is an acknowledgement that the foundation of influence, growth, and success is built on strength and stability. Without these, your capacity to contribute meaningfully diminishes. Consider the energy that is required to nurture your goals, your mind, and your body. These are not infinite. They require protection, attention, and deliberate allocation. When you fail to safeguard them, you are constantly reacting to the demands, crises, and expectations of others. Your energy is spent extinguishing fires that are not yours to fight. Your focus is scattered by requests that do not align with your priorities. Your emotional bandwidth is eroded by those who demand without consideration. By protecting your time and resources, you regain control over your life. You create a space where your energy is used intentionally, where your contributions are impactful, and where your growth is prioritized. This is empowerment in its most fundamental form. Empowerment does not come from being constantly available. It comes from being intentional about how you allocate your time and effort. It comes from recognizing that not every request deserves a yes, and that the strength to refuse is a form of power. When you guard your resources, you are not only protecting yourself, you are sending a message to the world about your value. You are demonstrating that your energy, your attention, and your efforts are not commodities to be taken for granted. This establishes boundaries, respect, and accountability. People respond differently when they encounter someone who has mastered the art of resource protection. Some will resist or push back, attempting to test the limits, but this is a reflection of their own patterns and character, not a deficiency in yours. Others will recognize the wisdom, fairness, and intentionality of your actions, and they will adjust their behavior accordingly. By creating a life in which your resources are protected, you also create an environment in which growth is nurtured. Your energy is available for pursuits that matter. Your focus can be directed toward endeavors that contribute to your personal development, your career, your relationships, and your long-term vision. Your time becomes an instrument of progress rather than a drain on survival. Protecting your resources requires discipline, awareness, and courage. It requires you to confront uncomfortable truths that not everyone deserves your attention, that some people will take advantage if given the opportunity, and that saying no is necessary for long-term well-being. It requires the ability to evaluate requests critically, to consider both the immediate and long-term impact on your life, and to act with intention rather than impulse. This is not always easy. You will face social pressures, guilt, and perhaps even resentment from others when you establish limits. But over time, you will find that these boundaries create clarity, respect, and stability. They prevent exploitation and foster relationships built on mutual appreciation, accountability, and trust. Furthermore, protecting your resources strengthens resilience. When your energy and time are safeguarded, you are less vulnerable to burnout, stress, and emotional manipulation. You can engage with the world from a place of strength rather than depletion. Your decisions are guided by intention rather than reaction, and your life becomes a reflection of your priorities rather than the demands of others. The act of protection is also an investment in your future. Every moment of energy conserved is a moment that can be invested in learning, growth, and meaningful achievement. Every refusal of a draining request is an affirmation of your capacity to focus, to progress, and to build. Over time, this accumulation of intentional actions creates a life of purpose, autonomy, and power. You learn to distinguish between those who add value and those who deplete it, between opportunities that align with your vision and those that distract from it, between relationships that are reciprocal and those that are exploitative. Your ability to protect your resources becomes synonymous with your ability to thrive. The wisdom lies in balance. Protecting your resources does not mean rejecting all requests or disengaging from the needs of others. It means evaluating requests, setting clear boundaries, and allocating your energy where it will create impact. It means being deliberate rather than reactive, strategic rather than emotional, and empowered rather than depleted. In this way, resource protection becomes a philosophy of life. It transforms the way you approach interactions, decisions, and opportunities. It teaches you that strength is not measured by how much you give indiscriminately, but by how wisely you choose to give. By safeguarding your time and resources, you cultivate a sense of freedom and autonomy. You are no longer at the mercy of external demands. You control your path, your priorities, and your energy. This control is empowering because it allows you to focus on what truly matters: personal growth, meaningful relationships, and long-term success. Protecting your resources also fosters self-respect. When you prioritize your own well-being, you communicate to yourself and others that your life and your efforts have value. You demonstrate that your energy is a precious asset and that it is to be used intentionally, not squandered on those who do not deserve it. Over time, this practice becomes second nature. You instinctively recognize requests that align with your priorities versus those that do not. You become adept at setting boundaries with clarity and confidence. You engage with the world from a position of strength, and your life becomes a testament to the power of intentional action. In essence, protecting your time and resources is not just about survival. It is about empowerment, growth, and mastery of your own life. It is the foundation upon which resilience, respect, and personal success are built. It is the recognition that your energy is finite, your focus is precious, and your contribution is most meaningful when it is intentional, deliberate, and protected. Every choice to safeguard your resources is a choice to live stronger, to act with purpose, and to engage with the world in a way that reflects your highest values